I would like first to take a few dissenters. So those of you who sat through patiently, calmly, yet exasperated by what I had to say, because you showed so much restraint and decency, then I think you should go first. So if you're a dissenter, maybe you can raise your hand first and we can prove dissent. Good.
All right, we're going to start right here.
Let's take three dissenters first. First of all, the laws are not pretty clear, the laws are very clear. That's illegal under international law. And that ought to be condemned. I don't have a problem with saying that. And then we have to look at it in the larger context. What does it look like? So between September 2000, when the Second Intifada began, September 28, 2000, and today, leaving aside the Gaza massacre, about, let me just get the number, 6,000 Palestinians were killed, overwhelmingly civilians. About 1,000 Israelis were killed. Again, overwhelmingly civilians. On both sides, on the Palestinian side, more Palestinian children were killed. More Palestinian children were killed than the total number of Israeli civilians killed. If you look at the overall context, which is what I tried to do at the beginning of my remarks, what the Palestinians have done, though overall it has to be condemned, is simply a pale reflection of what Israel has done to the Palestinians. And then you're left with the one, basic issue. Okay, on the question of proportions, it's way out of proportion what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. And then you're left with the basic issue. And what's preventing a resolution of the conflict? And here it seems to me the record is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is look at that UN vote each year, and you know who's preventing a resolution of the conflict. I don't know, honestly, I don't really know what options the Palestinians had in the last round of fighting. They entered into a ceasefire in June 2008. The terms were Hamas would stop the rocket attacks and Israel would gradually lift the blockade. By November 4th, it wasn't lifting the blockade. Mary Robinson, the former High Commissioner for Human Rights, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, she goes to Gaza in 2004, and she says, a civilization is being destroyed. A civilization is being destroyed. This blockade is destroying the people of Gaza. And then what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to sit there and just die? I've read the 4 volumes of the Geneva Conventions. I didn't see anywhere in the 4 volumes of the Geneva Conventions that Palestinians have a duty-bound obligation to just die. Do they have an obligation to just disappear? Do they have an obligation to just sit there while this brutal economic blockade is being imposed on them? Why? Why should they have to accept that? What was the alternative? Was anyone paying attention? Did anyone care? People are going over and saying these people are being starved, are being denied basic medicine, being denied electricity, being denied all their basic necessities. What were they supposed to do? It's very easy from here to wag your fingers at them. But what were their options? Unless you think they have some sort of obligation to just disappear from the scene because they're unpleasant or they cause us discomfort. The whole massacre was a disgrace, how it was received in the West. When the massacre was over, the EU representatives, they all go to Israel, and then they go to Egypt, and they all huddle, and they discuss how can we prevent arms from being smuggled to Hamas. Now, can you imagine that? Can you conceive it? Israel broke the ceasefire. Israel committed a massacre. And the only thing they can discuss is how we can prevent arms from being smuggled to the victim. Not to the perpetrator, not to the people who broke the ceasefire, not to the people who committed the massacre, perpetrated, but to the victims. Why? Why? The 100-to-1 ratio wasn't enough? We have to make sure that the Gazans are so completely unarmed, disarmed, that the ratio will be 1,300 to 0? Was that the goal? To the credit of Amnesty International, to their credit, though very belatedly, to their credit, they said in their last report, the one that came out a few days ago, they said, let me just read it to you. Amnesty International is calling on the UN, notably the Security Council, to impose an immediate, comprehensive arms embargo on all parties to the conflict, and on all states to take action individually to impose national embargoes on any arms or weapons transfers to the parties to the conflict until there is no longer a substantial risk that such arms can be used, or weapons could be used to commit serious violations of international law. Now, the question was asked earlier, what should be done? I think that's an excellent first step. And Amnesty was also honest enough in its 38-page report, it got the proportions right. It devoted about 1.5 pages to Hamas's violations of international law, the laws of war, and about 36.5 to Israel's violations, because that's the real proportion in the real world. And I think that's something we should all get on board for, a comprehensive arms embargo, so that these weapons, by the way, it was very notable if you read the Amnesty report. Nearly all the weapons, I was surprised myself, nearly all the weapons used in Gaza came from the United States. Yes. And to Amnesty's credit, it was very careful. It went through line by line by line, where all the weapons are coming from, what weapons were used, who supplied them. And Amnesty was basically telling all of us, hey folks, you want to do something? We're now giving you all the information. We're giving you all the data. And named each country. So now is the time to stop talking and start acting. Let's put a comprehensive, immediate arms embargo on all the parties to the conflict. I think that's a very good beginning.